Hello everyone and welcome to yet another live coding and chill. I'm your host Johnny, delighted to be here. Hope you're having an amazing weekend. Today we'll be working with the brand new Svelte MCP server, and I've gotten into drawing recently. I've gotten into the visual art, I suppose, and I funnel my creativity not always in coding but also in drawing stuff, and I've gotten into the habit of drawing a new Pokemon every day, like spend a few minutes doing that. I'm a terrible artist, but maybe I'll get better, and I do find that this is making me better. But what I was doing was rolling a random number and then going to like the Pokédex and finding that Pokemon, and then trying to find a few references for it and then combine them together to create the thing I was supposed to draw. And I was like, oh, that's an idea for an app. And with the Svelte MCP server coming, I was like, let's see if we can do this with less boilerplate work, like less hassle, busy work, and do like more creativity stuff. And we did manage to get to this point where, sorry, my whole screen now, where you can find this Pokemon, you can refresh the page or click the button, and then you get another one, and there is no layout shift, no nothing. I did need to tune the Svelte MCP server itself to get to this point, but not that much. I spent about 3 hours basing off this whole project that, as always, I'm gonna demo whether the login and logout flow works, or else I'm gonna shut down the stream. But of course, it will always work because I've made it, and together we make amazing stuff. So this project may look very familiar to all the other projects we've been doing. The last one we've done was a light bulb riddle one, and I based this one off that, changed a few names, changed a few keys, and now we have a project with a login flow. But spending 3 hours to do this, afterwards I sent to the MCP server, I want a page where I can get a new Pokemon using the Poke API, which is an awesome resource. I've seen lots of tutorials and guides and courses using it because it's made to be a learning resource. It's open without an API key. You just need to be considerate about how much you're hitting it, and we're going to be improving that afterwards. Anyway, I gave those instructions to the Svelte MCP server, and the result was pretty much this. So that was amazing, I found. It allowed me to do a few performance tweaks and visual tweaks afterwards without worrying too much about the boilerplate. Oh, do this call, check the response, is it okay? If it's not okay, throw an error, like all of that. But we're gonna set those things up, try them out for ourselves. We do have an agenda for today, as always. That's not that optimistic. I think it's realistic that we'll get through it in just an hour or two. So, what is an MCP server? MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, but it's one of those things already like API where people are using it as if it's its own word and its own thing. So I think many people use APIs without knowing what it stands for. Let me know in the chat if you know. I'm gonna quiz you on this. And similarly, MCP server has become this thing that AI models, LLMs, have agreed to be able to poll MCP clients are able to hit an MCP server in order to improve the results, let's say. So very often the MCP server would be responsible for crawling documentation related to the client's task, because a big problem with LLMs is that they have all the internet knowledge in the world of the past 5 years, very often with a cutoff point that's further down the past. And most of that code, when it comes to frontend, is like trash React code, for example. So it won't help you in your Svelte project. It would only make things more difficult for you. So for the Svelte example, the Svelte MCP server is the one that is able to draw upon related Svelte code with related examples to help the LLM actually provide an answer for you. And it has some nice prompts in order to re-prompt and add some validation gates, they're called, in order to keep improving the results that the LLM is going to be spitting out or writing for you before it actually commits to it. So some linting rules, some best practices, the MCP server makes sure that the final LLM output is passing all these Svelte quality checks. And it results in decent code, not the best code in the world, So it's still quite important to be able to see it and identify what it's doing, to know how the things work behind the scenes. But it will create the correct files for you. The structure will be correct. So you'll be able, if you know what you're doing, to get in there, tweak it a little bit and move on with your life. I think it's good. So to demo this app and what I've done so far, talk about this a little bit more again. You can find the link in the description and actually click around yourself. I'm sure by the end of it, we'll have more stuff to do there. We have this random page and you can actually click and get another Pokemon or refresh the page and still you get another one. So this is not cast at all. Ideally, we'd have a cast on the backend instead of hitting the Poke API every time the HTTP request. We do have a database which already has the user and authentication information, for example. So I would like to mirror the Poke API data into our own database, the things that we're interested with. Because, for example, I would love this page to have a filter and say, give me a random Gen 1 Pokemon. So you can like toggle which generations of Pokemons you want, because you know that the first Pokemon generation you played is the one that is the best. So maybe you just want that one. So for me, it's Gen 1 because I'm getting on the years, and Gen 2 as well. Anyway, what I found, as many problems as the Pokemon games have gameplay-wise, is they started at a really high point at the gameplay, and the designs are still peak. Awesome designs, even the later Pokemons that come out nowadays, some of them are absolutely brilliant. So I'm always happy to see one. Let's see if we can get like a later one, 593 Jellicent. Early. All right, Kurzist, an average Kurzist. It's like a Kurzist, Halloween themed. Two faces there. Fun, like cool designs. So the thing that the LLM spat out in the end was pretty much this, but it had two problems. There was layout shift because it didn't put a height and width in the image or do any sort of image optimization there. And also there was layout shift while it was loading. So you were clicking the button and you're getting we're loading your Pokemon, which especially on mobile is annoying because you'd have the screen scroll up and down. So we don't want that. And importantly, even though I explicitly told it to use the experimental Svelte Remote Functions, it did manage to read the docs, but it didn't use them correctly when it comes to reloading the data. So it was essentially just doing a go to navigation to the same page, which didn't work because in SvelteKit, if you try to go to the same page, it won't actually do it unless you pass more parameters or force some stuff. But you could also just do like a window reload, right? So that would actually refresh the Pokemon, give me a new one, but it wouldn't be the best practice of how to do this. The best practice how to do this with Svelte Remote Functions is to call a refresh in the remote function that will look how it works later on in the stream. But that's an example of where a lot of the code was correct, but there were like a few details that you'd need to know by yourself. Some of them you would notice visually just clicking around, like you'd see the layout shift, and then hopefully you'd know that, oh, common causes of layout shift is images, and then you'd look into this and see, oh, let's specify width and height for this image. Then you'd think about the loading state and be like, oh, maybe some skeleton UI is something I can put in here. So if you know the tools, the things you can work with, you can add them on afterwards, identify the problems. This one with the refresh, of course, the button just didn't work, so you'd know that this didn't work, but you'd need to have read the docs as well to know that you shouldn't do a window reload or just do code to with some parameters to refetch all data or whatever. That there is an API where you just call a refresh and it achieves exactly the result that you want that the LLM has missed. But overall, very promising, especially with experimental features like that. I did like the output that the LLM put out. What I was doing before the Svelte server, Svelte also has this page in their docs, which are the docs for LLMs that they have. And they have a directory of pretty much all the Svelte documentation, compressed in a very small size, so omitting quite a lot of information and examples, medium in between where it has a bit more documentation, a few more examples, but not that much, and the full documentation. And I was committing this to version control, making sure to update it myself every once in a while, checking if there are any changes. And then, if I did want a Svelte task, I would manually add it into the context of the LLM. But that's a lot of hassle, and still, I would be overloading the LLM with information it wouldn't need to know. So I would want it to have the complete documentation for related to the specific feature that I'm working on. But how would I do that? Would I manually go into this and then extract this? No, that's never going to happen. But that's essentially what the Svelte MCP server is doing. It has access to all of the documentation and all of the examples, and it's doing some magic behind the scenes in order to be able to extract, do some RAG, I suppose, and say, all right, I need to give the LLM these 3 passages, and then it should be able to go through and move on. And because it is doing this loop where the LLM can keep iterating the code and passing some validation gates, it can keep feeding it more documentation. So especially for an example like this, where remote functions, experimental feature, I didn't know much about it before using it, there is gonna be no code samples for the LLM to use. Beforehand, you do need something like this. You either need to manually go to the docs and paste the correct things, which no one is going to do. That's more time than doing it yourself. Or you need something like the Svelte MCP server to be able to retrieve that up-to-date latest documentation and feed it to the LLM. Especially with an experimental feature, I'll say once again, because they do say there may be bugs, some features can get abrogated, and all of that. Hello Rory, how are you? Could we use AI to pull out each concept and then have the MCP call those concepts when needed? So that's essentially what is happening there, and let's start drilling in deeper to give a few examples there. And we are at 12:10. So just to answer your question, you can see the LLM capabilities, and we'll see the prompts that it has, where essentially it's doing that. Based on the task, it instructs the LLM to be able to get specific documentation for specific questions, which I think is what you're asking, like the specific concepts. For this thing, we need these specific concepts. Here's all the documentation about how do you do remote functions, for example. Here's all the documentation about how to load data on the server with SvelteKit routes. Here's how SvelteKit routes work. Gives the context to the LLM, and then it's able to work better in that instead of spitting out just React and Next.js code. Next.js would be, similar enough. But often it would be just, use Axios at best to fetch this data, and then something that's not related to the feature that we want to play with. And another cool thing is that if you don't want it to write some code on your project, if you are in that sort of like research pre-planning phase, you can actually ask it to generate a playground link at the end. The Svelte playground is awesome. It can run even SvelteKit nowadays, so it can do a lot of complicated stuff. And you can ask the LLM to spit out a playground link for you. The problem with this is that this whole thing, this playground, everything that's in it, we'll get to that later on. In order to start the playground, the URL needs to have all the parameters of what the code and the files should be there, so the URL gets like super long. So it's cool, but I don't know if I'd use it. I'd rather just have the LLM write the files on my project and then I click around, because that's where I want to use the code anyway. But if there are, for example, a couple of visualization like list options that I want to use, maybe I would want to see them on the playground and then add them to the app. I don't know, there are use cases for that, but they've thought of quite a lot of things, the Svelte team, as usual, and the Svelte community. So we'll see how they work. So let's see the overview. I am doing a local setup, which essentially every time I spin up Cloud Code is going to be bringing in the latest version of the Svelte MCP server right there. But there is also the Svelte server, MCP server running in this link. So you can point it into that one, which redirects me to the docs because I'm a human and it wasn't like an AI LLM request. That's kind of cute. But in any case, I don't know why you'd use this. Usually the remote setup you do if you're working in a company like Shopify or Spotify or whatever, one of those where another team has made sure that you have their proprietary MCP server that only people in that environment working at Shopify have access to. So someone has bothered to keep this server up to date, and it's hard for you to run locally. You don't need access to that project. So just tell it, hit this MCP server, and that's it. But with this public server that anyone can get the latest version of, I don't see why you'd want the extra HTTP call and to hit this server. So I would just always do the local setup, which is what we're gonna show now. And then according to the LLM agent tool you're gonna use, it has a little section you can add in your respective file. I'm using Cloud Code, so we can see what I've added here, like bigger letters. So at the end, I'm saying that you have this Svelte MCP server, and explaining the code, you're able to use this Svelte MCP server where you have access to comprehensive Svelte 5 and SvelteKit documentation. Here's how to use the available tools effectively. So, and then it leads which commands, essentially, which endpoints it can hit. List sections. It says, use this first to discover all available documentation sections. Returns a structured list with titles, use cases, and paths. When asked about Svelte or SvelteKit topics, always use this tool at the start of the chat to find relevant sections. So first, lists all the sections and gets all the concepts that you need to implement this feature. Or gets all the sections, and then it uses the get documentation to retrieve the full documentation for the specific sections. So maybe list sections will tell you, all right, remote function query, this is how you need to use it, and routing, how to load data when routing. Find those two sections, use the get documentation to get the full documentation for those two. It is saying after calling the list sections tool, you must analyze the returned documentation sections, especially the use cases field, which is the examples as well. And then use the get documentation tool to fetch all documentation sections that are relevant for the user's task. Now, if you are like a Cloud Code power user, you may want to spend like an ultra think or something like that to make it think longer about how this documentation is applied to the specific case, but I haven't amended anything from the instructions that the Svelte team themselves have here. Then it's the Svelte autofixer, which analyzes the Svelte code that the LLM provides and returns issues and suggestions. It can even run in existing code. It doesn't need to be the LLM code. You can give it a file that you already have in the project, and then it will run through it. But the instruction here is that you must use this tool whenever you write Svelte code before sending it to the user. Keep calling it until no issues or suggestions are returned. So this is the example of the validation gate. Instead of just spitting out code and the LLM being confidently correct that it works, and then you put it into your project and it doesn't work. It uses the Svelte autofixer to submit the code there and at least not get any issues, any suggestions according to the Svelte autofixer. That's much better. As we said before, in real life, you may find that things like the navigation get another thing didn't actually work because the autofixer wouldn't know that, oh, you're going to the same pace that you were going before, so this would be cached, so you need like some extra parameters there. It doesn't know what you'd expect there. Maybe this is where you'd start tying into something like the Playwright MCP server, where it can actually navigate to the page and see if what you expect happens. But that's a story for another video, for sure. And in the end, it also has the playground link option, which generates as well playground link with the provided code. After completing the code, ask a user if they want a playground link. I've never been asked this because every time I've used this tool so far, I have allowed it to make changes to my files. And the instruction here is only call this tool after user confirmation and never if code was written to files in a project. So that's clever. It's nice to have. It's a cool party trick to have the playground link. So if my prompt is more about the planning phase, like show me some examples of how to do virtualization, then at the end it will ask me, do you want a playground link with what I've made? And then I can click around there and see what I like or not about it. But if it's an implementation phase development prompt by me, it is going to be writing files in my own code base, and a playground link would be useless. So it will not actually call this task, this endpoint. And then this is something added by me, so a section of project-specific nodes, creating new routes and page metadata. So this is all about how I do the metadata in my projects. So you'll see that it says random Pokémon here, and in the homepage it says DrawMon or whatever. It has a relevant title to help the user, and etc. If you remember from other projects, I have some default meta tags that in my root layout I either use, I default to, or I have any bespoke page be able to return a meta object that can have a title, can have a description, can have an open graph icon, for example, for socials, and then it actually renders them in the head of the page. So that's something specific to me. It's a bit of a common pattern, which I've seen other people use as well. But you can see that the terms page, the server load function is returning a meta object that has a title, terms of service. It's like this page. And a description, find out more about legal terms of service. I've made this, but it does mean that the pattern in my project specifically is that every page has the server load method that returns at the very least this meta object. So Claude didn't know about this, especially with remote functions where it didn't need to have a paid server load method. It won't have generated anything of the sort. So I've added this section to say, if you've created a new route, make sure you have added a corresponding +page.server.ts. Every route needs one with, at the very least, a load method. Return an object with a meta key. For example, at minimum, we should have a +page.server.ts like this. And I give an example of a very minimalistic page where it doesn't do anything else. It doesn't set headers. It doesn't fetch data from the database or whatever else. What it does is immediately return an object with a meta object with a title. And then I say, put the title here and a description, a long, accurate description for SEO best practices. So bonus, maybe it will be able to create a better description for SEO purposes than I would, because I am not a robot, and the people crawling these pages for SEO are only robots nowadays. No one actually reads this description. I guess when you share on socials, maybe you'll see it. Anyway, that's by the by. Even handier if you have more things there, like the open graph image and stuff. But this whole section is something I've added, and I'll see if we need any more that are related to this, to the way I structure my projects. Like the dependency injection that I like to do, that we'll talk about later. But the Svelte team says, here's the prompt to put in somewhere, which essentially just explains how to use the endpoints, the functionality, the tools that the Svelte MCP server has. And the recommendation there is to use Svelte task to instruct the LLM to use these tools correctly. And it's a bit confusing on how you use it. You can see like the whole prompt and then you're like, what do I do there? But I'm gonna show you what you're actually supposed to do with this. It's automatically integrated with Cloud Code and other tools. It will magically appear for us. But the documentation is a bit confusing on, well, how will I use Svelte task? We'll see it in a moment. So for the actual setup, we did say we're going to do the local setup with Cloud Code. So what I've done before and what I like doing is Cloud, let's make one for Cloud, add an MCP server as standard input output, and the scope, I like it to be project. I'm going to name it Svelte because it's Svelte MCP server, and I'm going to use npx, like install everything. The Svelte MCP server. What this will result eventually is if you don't have one already, it will create a .mcp.json for you to add to version control, so everyone in the project will be able to use this. If you have it, it will just add this SvelteKit for you, which will say the things that we specified in the CLI command. The type is going to be standard input output, command is npx, give it the arguments that we saw, and no environment variables. So easy enough. After you've done this, you can actually run Clode or restart Clode, and you can run the /mcp command to confirm that the Svelte server does actually work. And you can see the tools that they have that we talked about before. But I do like reading the docs for this. They're explained a bit better. So the other thing that this adds is the Svelte task prompt command, which is so long, but it is what they mean here in the overview, where at the end they say, we also recommend using Svelte task prompt. So how do you use the Svelte task prompt? In your LLM of choice, you will magically have this Svelte task prompt command. And with the MCP server running and the instructions that we've added in Cloud Code, if we do just say, create a new route, create a page, create a detail view page where I can see a Pokémon according to its name, it will try to use the MCP server to the best of its generic abilities and what we wrote in Cloud Code. But what the Svelte team wants us to do is use the Svelte task command and then say, create a new route, blah, 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 whatever your spec is, which you may have committed to your project and then you copy paste it there. We'll see if the functionality works where you just say, read this and implement this feature. We'll see how it goes. But what happens when you use that command is essentially it has this this prompt already made for you. Says, oh, you have like all these documentation available. Every time you write a Svelte component, you must invoke Svelte autofixer. So it's similar to the Cloud instructions, but I suppose that the Svelte team has found that it's a bit more powerful for that. This is the task you will work on. So anything we put after the /svelte task thing, it's going to be pasting it in there. And then again, it says, do you need to do a playground link according to whether you're writing to the place you are writing in the project files or not. If you're not writing the project files, then suggest a playground link. So I do find that using the prompt is a bit better, but it opens a few questions regarding what if I want to do the research plan implement thing. How do I use this prompt to integrate with that? You may need to write something custom there. We'll see. All right, with all of this, the server is set up. Let's see how it works. A lot of theory and a lot of preamble. So what I want is to create a /Pokemon slug, the name of Pokemon, detail view, and I want to call out that I want to use Svelte Remote Functions because I suspect that if I don't, it's just gonna do the classic thing of loading the data either on the server or with a universal load method. But I want to explicitly use Svelte Remote Functions to see how well it does with the experimental code that doesn't exist anywhere else, and because there was a lovely suggestion in the Discord to use remote functions. And I think they're interesting to talk about and use. They kind of remind me of how Next.js nowadays does the server components and all of that, which maybe is a bad thing, but we'll see. So enough of that. Let's actually do something. The prompt is going to be kind of big, so let's try to write it here together. So create a /Pokemon name detail view. You must hit the Poke API. Let's see what the previous remote function we had is doing. So maybe they can reference this. This is also using query. And I think that's it. So just a detail view, you could say some things like, oh, show the next Pokemon, and but then it introduces issues where if it's the first Pokemon, Bulbasaur, does it have a previous button? Does it disable? What's the interactions there? So let's keep the task specific. I want to go to this page and just see a new Pokemon. And let's see if it will magically try to reuse the component that we've created previously or not. But if you find that it doesn't, you could explicitly reference the components you've created. So let's see how well it does. /Svelte, use the Svelte task thing, and then just paste all of this and hope for the best. Hope we don't run out of tokens. Let me know if you've used anything like this before. Let me know. So it's saying that it wants to use the Svelte list sections prompt. And that's a big thing actually during setup. I do like for the first time I'm using a tool to see what permissions it requires. But then after I've confirmed that it's not going to be removing any files or migrating any databases or anything like that, then I do add it into the allow list for Cloud Code. So for now, I will say just do it for the session, and then we'll talk about how you can make it so it will never ask you again. 18K tokens, mainly to upgrade my tier during the stream. It did look for the Pokemon card that we've created before, which is nice. I wonder if it will look the skeleton as well. So now it wants to create a directory, which is interesting that I haven't created this description before. I guess it needs to. It has the privileges to write a file, so I assume that it would be able to write a directory as well. But I need to remember to add this as well. Making directories, it's fine. Removing directories, dangerous. Don't do it. Or ask for permission to do it. So I see that because some of the examples are using Valibot, it's not using Zod. Elsewhere in this app, I am using Zod for the schemas. And I wonder, let's see, does my Cloud MD mention anything? So it doesn't mention that we use Zod for validation, and I definitely should have that. I think Zod is a bigger standard for schema validation. It recently got a new version, which may have annoyed people because it was a big migration for some things. But Valibot is also gaining popularity, and that's what always happens. You know, just because a tool is standard doesn't mean that another tool won't leapfrog it. But I am confident with Zod for now. If you have used more Valibot, do let me know, because I'd be very interested in this. So it's interesting with the failed snippet and what it did. Speaking of remote functions, maybe I'll show this as well. In order for them to run in your code, you do need to add a couple things in your Svelte config, because they are experimental features. So in the config, in the kit object, say that you can run you want to run the remote functions, set them to true. And optionally, this is not SvelteKit specific, this is a Svelte thing. You can have a single wait in your Svelte components, which I do think is much handier. It does allow that thing that React did first of awaiting the promise and showing skeleton UI before you have resolved the promise and then actually showing the correct thing. I do think that's a bit handier than what Svelte used to do. So I'm turning this on as well. It is recommended by the team. If you don't want to use either of those, make sure to add something in your Cloud MD. So it wants to list files for some reason, maybe to check whether there is a load method there. So listing files, that should also be free. Should remember to do this. All right, so it says I've successfully created a detail view, but we don't have like playwright, so it didn't go to the browser to check. Did it successfully create it? I don't know, but thanks to the MCP server, at least the Svelte code is passing, so it should be something there. So Pokémon.remote.ts. I expect that it exported a new method which uses query to fetch a specific Pokemon according to the name. Then page Svelte. All right, so it added the plus page.server.ts, I assume only with the metadata stuff. Let's see if it did something to pick the Pokemon name. That would be interesting. Key features, it's type safe with props and TypeScript throughout. Remote functions, cool. Loading states with skeleton UI, cool. Error handling, user-friendly error messages. Responsive design with CSS, SEO optimized. This is like, you know, in the stand-up, your manager is asking, what did you do today? And then you say, oh, I did like these things. And then the stand-up is over. It's already taken 10 minutes. And it has an examples of like Pikachu and Charizard, which is cute. Let's see if it's true. Let's do it on the big screen. So it claims that Pokemon / Charizard will work. And it says error. Great. Ah, because we don't have Valibot. Of course. So the load method, it's using the params instead of actually fetching the data here, which is sticky. And this also has like a slug, dash for some Pokemon instead of space, which it didn't account for. But that's by the by, kind of cute. We'll see how it goes. In the Pokemon remote here, this is not a real thing. Let's say we're using Zode for validation. And I'm not going to use the Svelte task thing. Should I use the Svelte task thing? I guess why not? That's why not? And it's good. Like this is one of the reasons why it's good to keep these in version control, the prompts that you've added, because then you can amend them and you can just stash everything that's been done and start over if you find that it's too far away from what you want to do. But it's not that far this time. Standards. Do I talk about TypeScript anywhere else? Not really. Even here, even in this readme, I don't talk about Zod, so fair enough that I didn't know about it. Let's say this. Let's say what I want to write now. It didn't check whether Valibot is in the project though. That's it feels like that's something that should be done, or it should have a step saying, do you want to npm install this? And it also created a new Pokémon.remote, which is the same as the other one, where I would probably expect to have like the one file with both methods. Maybe relocate them to like the lib folder, but that's something I guess for a human engineer to come up with. Incorrect. All right, so let's see how fast it will manage to change this. So even though it is using the Svelte task prompt, it feels like it didn't start by getting some specific documentation there. I guess it thinks that nothing in Svelte specifically will be there. And it didn't run anything through the Svelte checker because it didn't write the Svelte component. All right, so it did this. Does this just work? Yes. Great. It would have been even more awesome if it just worked before. 9 kilos for the chunky Zard. It's cool. And it's using the component we have for like this random thing. So you see that we have like no layout shift whatsoever. Is there a loading indicator? This is not the actual Pokemon name. Keep in mind, this is the Pokemon name. So that's a bit of a thing. If it's a not found Pokemon, what does it do? Internal error. Okay, so it doesn't handle the case where it can't find the Pokemon. That's something to address. But let me know in the chat your favorite Pokemon. We'll be able to fetch it there. The slash Pokemon route, not a real route. But kind of interesting that it didn't do the 404 already when it doesn't exist. In the documentation, there should be stuff for like throwing errors and redirects. Let's see, is that true? Remote functions. 404. There you go. If no post, error, not found, get post. This is like the pristine example. So why are you not doing this? I don't know. Let's see what it's actually doing. We have this Pokemon remote. I think they're exactly the same. So this is the new one it wrote, and this is the one I've amended before. And instead of reusing this, it's just remaking it. And also, instead of reusing this, it just copy and pasted it. At least, like the slug is used correctly now that we switched from Valibot, interestingly enough. That's something, I suppose. And it's using fetch. If the response is not okay, then do this. Then you map this to something else. So it pretty much copy pasted what it had done before for the Pokemon thing. But it didn't hard type the return value, which is something that doesn't exist in the docs. This is something that I've added. And and it did that it takes like a slug here as the schema for what the query takes. So, you know, that's something, I guess. Cool. So I could manually ask for this, but I could manually throw the 404, but let's give it a chance. I'm gonna tell it, show the not found page if the Poke API does not return a Pokemon. I know that to do this, you run an error 404, which is a SvelteKit method that throws an error for you and gets you to the error page, which is a specific type of error, I suppose. But let's see if it will know this. So it figured out the correct file without me specifying it. Great. It's trying to see if we have an error page in the project. It's like, yes. Let's see how it looks like. And now it's claiming that we don't need custom error handling in the catch block. The error will be caught by SvelteKit and routed to the error page. Interesting. It was trying to do a not found page, but it's 500 before. Yes, and always format when you're done. Lots of words. Too many words. All right, let's see how it looks now. The response is not okay. It checks if it does 404. If it is, it throws the 404. I have given it an instruction for user-facing messages to always use like curlies, but it refuses to adhere to the standard. I don't know why. Or else it throws the 500 error. That's wicked. Couldn't do it. And then does the mapping. All right, let's see. Cursor 2. So it doesn't go to my custom error page for some reason. Why is that? Like if I go to this, then we go to this error page. If we go here, it just goes to a regular error page. This is the only place where we do this. We may need to read the documentation after all. Let's see. It throws this error. where do I render the not found page? In my error boundary. Great. In here and in here. If the page status is 404, then it should show this, or else it should show this one. But why is this not going? Both of these are the same. So I don't know why I have both. It's an old Sony problem. But it renders the generic error page, for example. The even more generic error page. Let's see what I mean. Like, I have a page that deliberately shows an error. Let's have a look here. Ah, that's why I have it there. That's what we found before. Just to test that errors happen, but maybe I had a better way to do this. Maybe the server, not sure. Anyway, we should be seeing this. Yeah, all right. So I have this page, which in the routes directory, I have a /error specific page. So here, which this should never render. As this is the page we used to test the main error page. And in the load method for this, it just throws a test error. No cause for alarm is what I say. And I can throw like a 404 or whatever. I wonder if I do use Svelte's error. I do see the same thing, so that's great. If I do 404, I do see the not found page. So all of that looks good. So the question is, the app has like yet another 404 page. I guess I don't need this one. Like another error boundary. I guess I had two because the marketing page on the core layout didn't have the header or like you're logged in or whatever. But in this project, they should both be the same. So that's something I should have deleted. I don't have any other grouping really. Like the auth pages should go there as well. So what else could it have added for this to not get to show this? Maybe the response is okay. Let's see. And then they try to map it anyway. Maybe the Poke API is returning at 200 even if they can't find the Pokemon. Oh, let's go to the 404. But why is it not using the... Maybe because it has error boundaries now? Boundary. Alright, so until the promise resolves. If it errors, the nearest Svelte boundary will be invoked. Which I guess means that we don't actually go to that error page. We need Svelte boundaries when using the Svelte remote functions. So that's an interesting difference. Code with Ali. Hello, React rules the world and I stand by it as a proud knight. Hello, Ali. What an emoji as well. Yeah, I've been, I'm a person who has contributed to React. So, it's pretty good and has ruled the world for sure. Will it be the framework of choice forever? Who knows? And the thing is, whenever you work any library, whenever you start using any framework, then the ideas pollinate with to each other. So we've talked about how the remote functions do remind me a little bit of the thing React did first with things like the error boundaries and the way they were handling promises and the server components and all of that. And similarly, Next.js got a lot of ideas from SvelteKit, which got a lot of ideas from the React router, React Remix stuff. So using these frameworks, having good ideas, pushes all of the frameworks forward, makes them all better. I'd never, like, for fun, you know, I would throw some shade to some frameworks, but yeah, just for fun. In the end, all we want is apps that work. So the confusing thing here is, if I can guess correctly, if in the load method I was throwing an error, let's say like 4.4, I would get the page not found as expected. So if I was using like my poor man's dependency injection thing, where in the locals I have the repository for all the Pokémon, which does the REST API call or hits the database and that errors, then I would get to the page not found or like the database error, the nice error page. But because we're using remote functions, that's an interesting gotcha there, we need an error boundary. And delayed is also interesting. That's just an example. If it's failed, it will do something, blah, blah, blah. Some examples there. But what I'm gonna do is say to... so interestingly, the error boundary also has the skeleton UI, theoretically. Demo on the playground, common playground win. Cool. So can we refactor to use this approach? As you may remember, we are awaiting and then doing then to actually render the Pokemon with the correct name. And until then, we're showing our skeleton UI, which interestingly enough is not using the components that we were using before. So I am a bit disappointed that it didn't, that it found the components. I saw them scanning them, but it didn't actually use them. Oh well. So Ali says, is this like server components of Svelte? Kinda. So we have like this method that you can run either on the server or on inside your components. So it's kind of like that. There is a bit more magic going on, but essentially it does mean that your components can do things like database calls, can have secrets that will not be exposed to the client. So I'd say it's similar. All right, so let's, should I manually refactor this? I guess so. The random Pokemon page, we have this. We have the Pokemon card skeleton, and then we have the Pokemon card. I don't know why I didn't use this in the first place. Should we just copy everything? Probably. Ah, but here, I guess it has like the page title inside the resolved Pokemon. I guess that's what I didn't want to do. I don't know why immediately, like inside the main, it's like, oh, let's add a div. Like if there aren't any extra divs, I feel bad. But again, I do like that it created some files for me, even if I need to get into and mess a bit more with things. So I definitely want to use this somewhere. So instead of recreating all of this, I want to use the Pokemon card skeleton. Question by Ali, will Svelte handle the secret stuff when compiling? Yes, so Svelte, magically, we don't happen to have any secrets here, but we would be talking to a database in the future if we manage to get the refactoring there. But Svelte will never zip this method on the client. What it will actually do is create an endpoint that the client will hit with a fetch request. So creating these .remote.ts methods using like query or form or whatever else, what it actually does is create a separate endpoint for the client to call and fetch that data for you. So your secrets will never be exposed. And if you just call it on the client, if you just call it on a server load method, it will literally just run this method. So it's not going to do the extra HTTP call then. But it will be looking where you're running this method. If you're inside a component, it will do the fetch call to an endpoint that it has created. If you're running it somewhere like here, in a server load method, it will literally run the method. Which I think is super cool. And great for stuff like infinite loading that I will want to show at some point, where at the start, at the server, you do want to fetch like the first page of stuff, but then you want the client to keep using the same method with a different limit and offset. But I don't particularly want to write myself the endpoint where it says, oh, now I accept the offset and the page size and all of that. I would rather have the one method that does both, and then Svelte does the magic to create the HTTP point for me. Cool version. So again, the client-side bundle will never have the secrets. It's the server endpoint, the server bundle that is going to have the secrets. Right. So in here, we want the skeleton. We want the page title, which will make it be the skeleton, I suppose. But for now, let's just say loading. And here, we just want the Pokemon card. Should have reused this for sure. Ah, so these components were also in that specific route, which maybe have made it a bit less keen to use them. So it did use like the page title this time, but maybe because it wasn't in like the $lib directory, it felt that it wasn't a common component, so it didn't use it. I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt here. And let's cats. Because we do need to cats after all, kinda. We'll ask it to refactor afterwards. Ah, we need all the alert stuff, of course. So now, I would have expected this to go to the cat's case. Guess not. I guess it still needs the error boundary. So let's ask the AI to do this instead of manually reading those instructions and trying to do it ourselves. Let's say refactor to an error boundary. Svelte boundary. Maybe one more thing to do. Let's put these in a common directory. Extract these guys out, paste them up here. Almost. Interesting that it only refactored for the first one and not in the correct way, but hey. Alright, so let's see. Random still works. Plonk. Specific still works. Misspelling not found doesn't work. Ali says, this is different from Tanstack start. I think for Tanstack start, it adds it to your bundle. I haven't used Tanstack in a while. It's been ages. Like I've used like React table and all of that stuff. But I understand that lately it became more like React query, which was awesome. I really liked using React query. So I'd begin to investigate this at some point. I do suspect that Tanstack was always like more client side first. So I would be cautious about the things it would be doing on the server side. And Tanstack is a library. So that's like one of the things that I do think is a benefit of Svelte and SvelteKit, that it's like the one thing that has this full stack development. I guess Rich Harris is calling it like, you know, meta framework, but they have that integration with backend and frontend that no one else can have. With Meta and Facebook being more tied into Vercel and Next.js, this happens a bit more. So Next.js can do magic stuff like, oh, let's create this endpoint for you that will do it, that will make sure that the client component will be fetching this backend API route that we magically create for you without you doing anything. But a third-party library like Tanstack, it would need to do a lot of work in order for it to create these endpoints for you and ensure that no secrets get leaked. Well, with Svelte and SvelteKit, it's like part of the language that the compiler will do this for you. I think that's quite cool. That's like a clear benefit of Svelte, but of course, clear benefit of React is there are so many amazing libraries, like all the Tanstack stuff that are battle tested, and you just need to be a bit more cautious or like roll with the punches when they don't have this quality of life features there. So for example, lots more of charting libraries for React than with Svelte. Right, so that aside, what did I want to do here? Also, this card is taking this from the Pokémon interface that I would also like to refactor. Where would I put it? Lib types. I guess in the repos directory, I would have like a Pokémon repo at some point. So let's do it. Let's say Pokémon and explicitly have types directory. Maybe. We can refactor this later, but for now, let's say just the types ts and put that Pokémon type in there. Let's put both of those types in there so we don't have to retype them. So type there. Now, let's let's go to our remote methods. We don't want to use these. We want to use this. We want to use this. And similarly, in our other remote function, we don't want to reuse this thing. But we do want to bring this in. And while we're here, let's explicitly say that this returns a Pokemon. Does it? I guess it errors at some point. Is it because of this? Does it get typed like differently? Maybe that's why I didn't do it. I'll need to investigate this further. Let's just say as Pokemon here for a bit more type safety. So if I say WT, yeah, it will error out. So that's something. Yeah, so if you are going to type something, then first you need to, if you are going to pass two parameters, first being the schema, then you need to specify the schema first. I guess that's the idea. So let's say slug. And with slug schema. Type of slug schema and then Pokemon. Yeah, so that's what we needed to do. So if your query does have two parameters, like the slug and then the way it actually gets the data, if you want to type what it returns in the end, you need to first pass the schema. Sure. And if I call this, you know, number, should error out. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Got the same example as before. Misspelling here. It's like, what have you done? No, wait. Good. This map should probably also be like refactored because it does the same thing, but we'll find it later. All right, so we've done these two things. All to say use Svelte boundary. Refactor to use a Svelte boundary. The query part code with Ali. I'll explain it after we've done the error boundary, so I can see how it works with in the error case as well. To just wrap this up. So we want to say in here, maybe no, I will focus and get this resolved. We will use more queries in the future to do pagination as well. So we will have another brand new example, but I will talk about this. So in this page, is it an error? Failed. Not failed. All right, let's see. refactor to use a Svelte boundary in this new page with appendix snippet. UI. I'm not clearing the context because we're still working on the same tags, but it may have been a good idea to just clear the context here. I would do a commit, I guess, because this kind of works for the normal cases, and then clear the context and ask again. It says issues cannot use away in derived and template expressions or at the local level component unless experimental sync is on, which it is on. So that's interesting how it's getting this error. I wonder if it's because I'm in a monorepo and it cannot see my specific Svelte config. It keeps getting this issue where I cannot use a weight in the top level or whatever. But it's not true. You can. Well, it got somewhere. So we're in a monorepo situation here, and the root of the project doesn't have a Svelte config. The web app, the SvelteKit web app, does have a Svelte config, where we have added compiler options experimental async true, and it seems like the Svelte MCP cannot see this, and it keeps warning. But hey. All right, so different error. Getting a Pokémon still works, but the 404 does something slightly different. Let's see. Error is unknown. Is it unknown? I guess that's kind of common. So I want to write if it's an instance of error, or do this. Ali is also saying you're trying monorepo project, and I really like how you can define your schema to use across front and back. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons where I'm doing monorepos every time, even in this project where I just have the web app now. After you've done the first scaffold, it's easier to just keep reusing it and assume that you may need another repo. So you may need like a cron job or whatever, or you may need a Swift app that you can add in there. So just in case you may need another project, I've been gotten into the habit that even if I only have a web app, I am gonna put it inside a monorepo. Adds a little bit of complexity and may lead to issues such as this, where maybe the Svelte MCP server is not looking at the right directory. The Playwright server for browser tests will not be looking at the right place for the Playwright config, but I think it's worth it. It's not a premature optimization thing because I don't start with a web app and then refactor needs to be a monorepo. It's about the same effort to do it like this. And if I resolve this problem of having the Svelte MCP server look into the Svelte config in the right directory, then I'm golden. Right, so in the failed case, we have this, it shows nothing. So that's a bit disappointing. And the pending UI those saw the loading page briefly, but I guess, do we not get into the failed case? It has the reset button to try again, I suppose. But how come? I would expect this snippet to be rendered, as in here. We have the flaky component with errors. I guess it's not the component that errors, it's like the method. It's this method. So, does this need to be inside something else? Because we're not awaiting here. So do we need to hide this inside the component? Maybe that's the problem. Let's quickly try this out. Let's call it detailed Pokémon. And copy all of this, paste it in there, but actually only use this. And I guess it would never write this code because it thinks that's not legal. But hey. Instead of this, let's say detailed Pokémon. And I guess it doesn't have params. Or does it have the slug name? Yeah. So that's the name. Okay, so theory is incorrect. It doesn't actually get into this. Anything else about error boundaries? Let's just put in here this, just in case it like fails for some other reason. Hello Faranglo, how are you doing? Let's see, I'll try to do a few more streams before the year is over. So yeah, this failed thing doesn't seem to be running. But something is catching an error because I don't get the straight up error page. It just doesn't render this. And this feels like a real thing. Is there anything else we're missing? Added in 5.3. Like it is catching something, so there is no way we're not in at least this version of Svelte. Yes. It allows you to do this, blah, blah, blah. It says these are like errors after set timeout or async work are not caught by error boundaries, but with remote functions, it did say that these can be caught. So unclear. All right, so we click the button and this component is doing something. It makes mouse be null and then you're trying to access the property and then it errors. Great. And then it restarts, resets, great, refreshes the components, you click the button, you get the error. Sure. It's a snippet. It feels like we need to be getting here, but we're not. And this is like the main case with the 404. Anything else weird? I guess we are getting in the Pokémon not found states, right? plunk, plunk, 3. Yeah. So that does happen. The response is not okay. We're getting here. But the Pokemon is not, the error from the Pokemon API is not caught. If we just pretend that this happens anyway, even for like Charizard, again, it doesn't seem to be catching anything for us. The pending UI is working, but this failed UI is just not working at all. Could it be with a button? I guess that's the example that they have here. The button just calls the reset thing. So it couldn't be, right? Yeah, not a thing. Anything else? Boundary. The promise resolves, and if it errors, the nearest boundary will be invoked. Using await is recommended, blah blah blah. So yeah, we're doing this await thing, right? It's hashtag await. Is that the problem? It's the magic. It's Svelte await. So that could be the problem. Oh my god, that's gonna be the problem. So because the Svelte linter was saying you cannot use await in components, I think this is gonna be it. But wait, that's not how you use await. Next is this. Like another example of await. Get weather. It gives the data like this, I suppose. How else would you use it? Alright, we're getting somewhere, fellas. So, not detailed Pokemon here. We'll delete this. We will use the Pokemon card. Here we go. Use case first. And Pokemon will be await get Pokemon param's name. Got him. So the problem was that the linter was saying that you cannot use await in components, even though in our Svelte config we are saying we can use await in components. And that made, like, even though in the docs, all the examples, are they with like this sort of await? Yeah, all the examples are with the regular JavaScript await. For whatever reason, the Svelte server, we saw it was trying to do it like this, but it kept getting issues that you can't do this. So it reverted into the Svelte specific SARP await, hashtag await. And that caused all these problems that we were trying to debug all this time. Wow. So, thanks for bearing with me. That means that we can actually use the error page that we had before. Whatever it was. And now we know. And I need to figure out how to prevent this from happening ever again. So how do we pass this Svelte MCP server a config that is deeper in the repository? We'll need to find out. The error case is this, clunk. But this is not exactly the error case that we want. We want to say if error instance of error, I guess. If how do I get the code? Looking it harder. So it's not an instance of error. What is this supposed to be? Boundary. What is error? Isn't it what we throw through? No one knows. What is it? Is it really unknown? I guess. Anyway, it's in this case that we'd need to find. So it's never an instance of error. Okay. This on stringify error. Oh, it had the status. Great. Sure. But how do I type this? It's something. I know that I want to do something like this. Where it's like, if it's a 4-4, let's make it not font. Then we can have like a button. Maybe it's just a button. What do we have in our hero page? Let's go with that one. So I think we should be getting into this case. Else, something similar. So what was the status again? It has a status. Ah, but it's 500 because we made the remote just always 500. Ah, Johnny, you silly goose. Yeah, so we're getting in this case, good. And let's look at Satsi and Svelte. See this alert guy. Not a dialog, alert, just alert. No actions, no. Yeah, just put it here. All right, so how do I type this? Who knows? We'll need to do it. And now we can go back to the remote and add our like hard-coded error. What should we say? Like something blew up. Could not get this guy. And then we do want on the button to be like one click. One click reset. Try again. Sure. Let's say this again in the title. So we want the description. Getting there, guys. Some of these things try too hard to help. On this. All right, and if we try again, it will error again. But if we remove this hard-coded error case, try again, should work, but we're in the wrong case. Okay, so let's try it again for a real Pokemon. Let's say we blew up, like something went wrong. we fixed it, or the server is back up. Try again, you do see what you need to see. We went there. And this does need a Svelte title. But what's the name of Pokémon? Interesting. Interesting. Because this guy would also know. But can I have two of them? And do like dot name. Yeah, why not? Of course this works. But why is this like lowercase? The API returns this. And we have like capitalized the actual name. Yeah, I suppose so. Kind of interesting. So question is, won't that call the server twice? And that's what I want to find out. Hopefully there is Svelte magic to actually only call it once, or else we're in trouble. But how would we do that? I guess for debugging purposes or for demo purposes, I will try this. But first, let's do this capitalization thing. Capital. Plonk. All right. So I still need to do like some typing here, I suppose. Like, is the error like an instance of the error that Svelte gets? This one we don't need. Let me answer your question first, your previous question first. How does query work? So two examples of using the Svelte Remote Function query for querying data. For getting a random Pokemon, here, we call it with no parameters, so we don't pass any parameters here. We just call query, and in this case, the first parameter is an asynchronous method which is responsible for hitting your database, doing your fetch API call, how you actually get the Pokemon. But if you want this to be taking parameters, then the first parameter of query should be the parameters that you want to pass in. So in the example where we get our Pokemon by slug or by name, then the first parameter is the schema, and when we do pagination in the future, we'd be passing as the first parameter like offset. We'd want to be passing something like this, like the page size and the limit or whatever, and we would be passing this as the first parameter, so it would be like pagination options or whatever else. But the way the Svelte team has made query work, in order to provide some more safety, more validation, when you want the method that fetches the data to have some parameters, you need to specify as the first parameter a schema. So you can use valubot or you can use Zod as we're using here, but this should reflect what the arguments that you get here are. So if it's an object, you should be creating a pagination schema, which is an object that has like an offset limit and whatever. So if I say that this satisfies the pagination schema, then this will magically get the correct type and say, oh, name is actually an object now, so which has an offset and a limit, so you can actually do the lowercase stuff. So it should be cool when we actually do navigation next up. So that's answering your first question about query. Sorry, it was like 1 hour ago. This is not shown by the docs, but I just like felt that it was the right thing to do. Lots of libraries do this, where when you're using TypeScript, you can use inside arrays, you can specify usually what you want the return type to be. useState in React uses this a lot. For example, you can specify that, oh, the state could be null, or it could be like this interface, this type. But the thing I didn't know, which kind of makes sense, is that if you are using parameters, you also need to specify the type of the schema that you're passing in here, which also helps you validate this. Right, so question 2. Can you just willy-nilly call a remote function 1,000,000 times in the app? Will it result in 10 million calls? Hopefully not. Let's see. So the first time, if I manually go to this page, we should get a server-side call. Let's go to our network. Let's do like the big screen first to prove this. This is a cool question, and we need more chapters. Like, who knows when this was done. But let's say does calling the same remote function multiple times on a page result in multiple calls? Hopefully not, but we'll find out. So here, let's open the network tab and see what actually happens. When I actually go to this page, just load the fonts, because I'm only filtering for fonts. Classic Johnny. But it's kind of like hard to see which is actually the call that fetches the data of the result promise eventually. I guess it's this one, handily named get Pokémon payload this. So even if we've called it twice in a given page, it's only once that it gets called. And then I guess the data gets sent to the two components, to the two places that we need it. So that's cool. If that's not enough proof, then I feel good about this. But let's add like a little button. Say refresh data. Like, let's say generation 10 or whatever just dropped. Maybe they've added like, maybe Charizard is even chunkier now. Maybe they've updated the weight, so you want to update the data. And we mentioned, if you do want to refresh a query, then I guess you need to call this and call refresh, I think. Let's see. What did I do in the random page? Because I did this before. So get random Pokemon, I just call this and refresh it. So that's what I'm doing. Great. Why doesn't it like it here? Because it needs the parameter. So that's good type safety. You can't just call it with whatever. I guess these are keyed, so if you have multiple Pokemon on the page and you just want to refresh the one, that's going to be happening. Oh. Hola. Beleza. This is what I have to say to the Brazilian fans. So we have this button. Let's make it like a button, I guess, so I can click it more obviously. So in the big page, what I expect is just the one call, even though you can see that we are calling this method here to do the refresh, but that's a different thing. And we're awaiting and calling this method for the title of the page and here. So visually we're calling it 3 times, but I'm hoping that the SvelteKit magic is actually is actually saving us from doing 3 separate calls. And when I click this button, we should only see one. And indeed, we only see one. Great. And I take that as proof enough. And what else can we see? So the thing we were talking about before is I guess maybe this could have been like a type result error or whatever, but it gets all the fresh data from there. What's the actual request URL? It's interesting. It has like some Svelte specific headers that they're adding, saying that, oh, it's for this specific page. I'm sure that they're doing some cool stuff behind the scenes for us. But yeah, so it seems, here's the full URL. So it's _app/remote. I guess these are all namespaced for the remote functions. And then slash it's an ID, which I think is in order to cache bust. If you've done some code changes in your remote function, this ID should change. So the user will be using the latest version of that function. It will get like the latest stuff. And then it's the name of the actual method that you have. And the payload, which I guess is the slug. It looks like too big to be the slug, but who knows how they are encoding this. But this is also an example of I don't want to manually be doing all of this stuff and be like, oh, when I call it on the server, just run this method. But when I'm calling it on the client, then I need to make the API endpoint for myself and do all of this stuff. SvelteKit does it for us. That's cool. It's really cool. I suspect that every .remote.ts file gets namespaced like this. I imagine this is like a bit too small to see on my screen, so apologies. But we have this /_app/remote/ some ID. Now it's like 18KU, whatever. But I suspect every time you change, you have a file that's .remote.ts, SvelteKit is making sure to create that endpoint for you that client-side components can hit. And then it's one of those is it's exported method that you have is the name of the endpoint in that directory, in that group of methods. So if I were to do this refresh in the refresh page, maybe I should have just done it here instead of creating the other one. I'd expect that it's going to be a different bucket inside the app. So _app remote, and then it's like dy4qmz, and then /get random Pokémon. So my exported variable name is here. So I guess that's interesting to know, like don't put your secrets there. Maybe don't say get the random Pokemon from S3 bucket like ID or whatever, because that gets exposed to the user. Naming things is hard, but now it's like a consideration here that the user can see this name, which is interesting. And not sure if that's what happens in production as well. Maybe in production they just minify it. Maybe they just call it A or whatever. Who knows? And this is for debugging purposes. Not sure. I will check. And by I will check, I mean I will check now. Immediately. So yeah, this remains handy. And then I'm thinking of unifying, like just having the one Pokemon.remote.ts file, refactor into that one. So let's do like another chapter point here. Then I'd expect the directory to be the same for both of them, even though they're different pages, but they're going to be using different names, different paths. They get the random Pokemon one and the other one. But first, let's see if we can tell the MCP server how to give it the Svelte config. maybe that's an issue that I will need to raise eventually, because I don't see anything here. Yeah, recording config. It's this guy, right? So the Svelte autofixer should be able to know that I am using a weight. So let's do a quick search. Svelte autofixer does not see my svelte.config. Yes. Svelte config. Anything else for Svelte autofixer? Like a section here, they use it. It's not meant for humans to use. But I'd love to see the code here. So it's just saying that the Svelte autofixer, the example code file that says Svelte autofixer analyzes Svelte code and provides suggestions, fixes, but it doesn't say how it does that, how you can pass your Svelte config. I guess it's not a package here. Lib autofixers. Desires version. Yeah, that's something for me to debug or raise. The Svelte community is amazing, so maybe if I even raise the issue saying I have this problem here, so how it is. I don't quickly see a place where you can pass your Svelte config. So yeah, that's something to debug in a different time. So let's actually do this now. No. First, let's see where else we're doing like non-top level await. Here. We need to refactor to be the same as the other one, because we don't want to use it like this. So yeah, let's do this refactor that we talked about, and then we'll refactor this. So Pokémon remote.ts, we have this repos Pokémon. Let's copy this one into these repos. Maybe instead of types they could be here, but we'll see. Let's call this name schema. Just a Slack schema. And let's go to our other Pokémon remote function, the random one, and copy this stuff, put it in a common one, because I suspect we just want to get a Pokemon, I guess. So maybe we have a get Pokemon from Poke API, and then what we want. Yeah, just get this. Chook. But it's the hold response, I suppose. So yeah, don't type this. Come on. Just infer it. Don't make life harder for you. Ah, but this is a name. So it could be like name or ID, string or number. Am I making this? Can I use queries inside of queries? That's another question that I have now. Yeah, I would want actually to just make this more generic. Check these things. Just do all of this, really. Name or number. And then it's like let's call it ID, I suppose. I don't know if I'd call the Svelte error method. Maybe I would. We'll see if it works, then we'll just use it. So in this case, we would just return immediately the Pokemon from that method. So it would be the same. So we can even just say get Pokemon for Poke API and then do like something clever at some point. But get random Pokemon, we would just do this. And do things just work? Yes. Good. So what I expect now if I go to the network tab in the big screen, would be that we still call get random Pokemon visually, but they should be in the same bucket as the other one. So dy4q is what it says here. If we go to our beloved Charizard, dy4q, it's a different one. Oh well. We're not actually using this, are we? So let's delete the Charizard one and actually bring in get Pokemon from the common place, librepos Pokemon. And the random one, let's do the same thing. Let's delete this, and get this from the common one. Still works, hopefully. Refresh data. Get Pokemon. TM0, the random one. TM0 as well. So I was right, they create like a directory of endpoints, a group of endpoints, and in there they use the export name that you gave for the name of the actual endpoint. Cool. Cool. And do I want to like manually refactor? First of all, I want to type this somehow. Let's see if in the docs. Does the error ever have a status? Maybe we can have a look like this, actually. But it gets given the error here. So, let's see. So, using the page store state. And the page error message here. Does that always exist? No. So again, let's go to our Charizard. Let's go to our remote function and throw this. All right. Could not catch that Pokemon. Great. And try again. And for a 4/4, good. We could always, that's always so. Hello, Imal. How are you doing, Kisara? So we could always throw a missing na if there is an error, but that's too cute for this stream. Right, so that's one way to handle this not having a defined type. Seems to work. We don't actually want this button. That's for demo purposes. Was it not a 4/4? Yes, not. So that's a bit of a problem. Hacktoberfest, hadn't heard about that. Then you should share it on Discord and I'll have a look. Is it like every day different challenge? So how come this is not a 4/4? Let's render this page status. 200. It's okay. I guess it loads as okay to begin with, but then the error appears. So that's unfortunate. My laziness for typing. The error must be resolved. I should have like a common error somewhere. Right, I don't want to do this like everywhere. Maybe that's what the lib directory is for. utils here. No. Is Svelte error TS. Export const is Svelte error. I'm trying to write like a guard. Blah blah blah. And export type Svelte error. Good, good, good. Should have a status and a message. Optional message, maybe. So in this page, maybe another if. Keep nesting, we'll get there. Is Svelte error. I will do it in line and see. And then here, all right, so I think we finally got there. Application looks so clean. Oh, thank you. So something I mentioned before, feel free to look in the description and play around. I did base it off the light bulb riddle one, and took me about 3 hours, and I do think it looks nice. But this, with the random Pokemon, this page, this is LLM design. And it's good. I don't know if I'd have done better. I guess the problem is that now that I've seen this, I'm kind of locked in, that I can't really think of how I do it differently. Although I did change a little bit how it works on the mobile version, so I put the name on the left, but it's like so small. But I was very pleasantly surprised with what the LLM spat out using the Svelte MCP server. And I'll say again that I had layout shift, and I needed to manually resolve it by specifying width and height here, and like some things weren't working, but really good. So I guess, you know, if you have put in the effort for the base of your app to be kind of good and kind of clean, and you use the Svelte MCP server, you too can have a clean design like this. And I didn't use purple this time because I think red is more of a rose red is more of a Pokemon color, and apparently people get triggered by purple nowadays because it's like, oh, LLM, so they always spit out purple stuff. So I gave rose one a try, even though I've done rose apps before. Right, so I don't actually have a navigation to go to this page. We don't need the refresh data anymore. And get another sounds a bit. Say again. And maybe we've reached the point where we're enough at a decent enough place for a commit. Don't think I'd want to refactor anything else for now. I think that's it. So let's do a commit. Plonk. Let's use AI to write the message. Let's see how close it gets. Refactor code structure for improved readability and maintainability. You hate to see it. you see like the app change log and it's like, oh, performance improvements and various bug fixes. And you're like, come on, man. That tells me nothing. And a dedicated detail page for a single Pokemon. So we have that one, and we've also, okay, so we've discovered that we shouldn't be using the Svelte magic await with this, but we should actually be using the regular await. So how, let's see if the Svelte MCP server is able to understand this. Would we need to send the config? I don't really know. So let's close everything. Random. I want this. I want to say refactor in that other page. Name. Pokemon name here. Pokemon name. Copy relative path. So let's say, so Svelte config. Maybe the cloud MD, we have this thing. It is saying Svelte autofixer. Use this tool with. Let's see if that will do anything. Maybe I can just put it on the root of the repository and then reference it somehow, like do a symlink or something, who knows. Okay, so two ways to get around this problem. Let's see. Svelte, refactor this, use this. Good luck to us. Context left until auto compact, 12%. And then we'll clear the context, I suppose. HTTP admin. Very, very kind words. I know I haven't done a lot of streams. It's been quite a year, but I'm hoping to do more. Yet again, I did kind of prophesize that last year's record of streams would be hard to match or top, but it's way lower than I expected. I'd love to do like twice a day, but I'd also like to do game dev as well. So maybe it will be more streams, but a similar amount of time, or even more game dev versus Svelte. But lots of people are afraid to do like marketing and extra stuff with their games, but I love to do that sort of thing. So if I did do a roguelike deck builder, I would definitely have a web app where I show the cards, for example, and people can vote on the cards. Oh, this is a cool system, maybe suggest more cards for the thing. So there will be Svelte in the future, even if it's more game dev. All right, so it claims, again, benefits, modern patterns, blah, blah, blah. What did it actually do? It did add the boundary, so just the one page. I can see it's red, so so who knows what it did. The random page, this one. It's the error message. So it didn't actually validate it. Okay. Pending has a skeleton. Yeah, I think it believed it. I guess we'll need to see if mentioning where the config is made it use the tool in a different way, or it was my instruction to ignore this issue. But kind of promising. Anyway, so I guess this may be like a TypeScript server type of thing or a SvelteSec type of thing where I should be telling it, make sure there are no problems like this. But hey. It seems this still works, right? We're not getting the pending UI while it's loading. I wonder if there is something else. So we click this, but it doesn't actually get to the pending UI. Interesting. What else does this have? This remote function have? It does have like a loading state, I suppose. Shouldn't this be shown even like when I do the refresh? Because it doesn't look like it's doing it. So it is showing the pending state here, but when I press to refresh, it doesn't actually switch. It is fast at least, so not sure. Anyway. Let's use the is Svelte error. And let's actually see the error by throwing an error here. Right, my energy levels clearly are dropping, so we should be dropping the stream soon. Anything else that I want to do here? Like another cool Svelte feature that doesn't quite work as well in React. This editor to component. Right, so what else do I want? I think that's it. So yeah, we kind of lost like the loading button. Should we make it use the loading spinner? Maybe. I know that SatCN has like some new loading or spinner functionality. Should we try to add this? It claims that the component will just work in a button. but I can only imagine it will get smaller. Do I have a spinner component anyway? Yeah. So let's check this load. What are you trying to do? I have set up my VS Code with the Svelte server, but clearly it's not using it enough. Is this a method? No, it's a boolean. True before the first result is available and during refreshes. And if. Is it all lies? Is it that fast? Is it that the data is immediately there, but the image is loading? I guess that may be it. Catching the next stream should be closer. Should be this month. I think that may be the case. So the data is coming like super fast. So maybe I don't need to do any of this. Maybe I do. Who knows? But I won't do it for now. But yeah, I think this gets in immediately, but it does that the image takes a while to load. And we could add like some stuff to show the placeholder before the image loads, but that's like an issue for another time, for sure. All right, good. Let's do our final thing. Should we do pagination or should we call it a day? We may need to call it a day, and you may need to tell me what to do next. Let's see if we can do like quickly pagination thing. So I did mention at the start of the stream that kind of what I was using before, the official Pokémon page does have a Pokédex where you can actually press and see some Pokémon here. I think too many, like having too many options, you may be like, oh, I want to do like the cute candle doggy here. I've actually gotten this one. I drew this one. Absolutely adorable. Anyway, they give you a few options, which some people may want. Some people may like this. Some people may not want exactly this, where just see one, reflect if I like it or not, and if I don't like it, only then press the button. You may want to see three at the same time and then pick your favorite. So let's try to do that. Let's commit this. Clear the context. And hope for the best. So what feature do we want to add now? Let's allow the user to select the number of Pokemon they want to see in the random Pokemon route. The defaults to 1. Or 3, 6, 9. I will say make sure to use make sure to use query params so that the user keep hold of the state. What should we call it? Use a per page query param. All right. So final thing, use the Svelte task thing, paste all of this. Let's allow the user to select the number of Pokemon they want to see in the random Pokemon route. Let's have a dropdown that defaults to 1 and also has options for 3, 6, 9. Make sure to use query params to keep hold of the state. Use a per page query param. I don't have the SAT-CN thing. I know that the React SAT-CN now has an MCP server, which is very handy to bring in components like this, but we don't. So I think before this, let's bring in the select component manually, like animals. Whoa. PNPM problems. What was the problem again? Is it just remove node modules and try again? Maybe. Didn't expect this problem. I did upgrade the version of PNPM. Try again. Let's see what it actually brought in. It seems like it brought in something. I'm not using Lucide for this, so I will need to take this later. So Imao has a question about JOHNNIFY Premium. Can learn it step by step through the GitHub repository. So JOHNNIFY Premium gives you access to the GitHub repositories because they're private repos. Because I want proof of value, like are people getting this? But ask me on Discord about this as well. And it's not step by step. It's the latest version of this project. So in theory, for this one, you should catch the live stream where we made the previous one, the light bulb one, and then the even previous one. And eventually we got to this point where we have this monorepo that has a Drizzle database and user authentication and all of that. But the repositories are the latest version. So it's not a course style of repository where you start from a starting point and then has exercises for you to actually use this. It's a head start, like I did for this app, where I cloned the I've actually shown this in a live stream. I've cloned the light bulb riddle repository into a new project, calling it DrawMon, and then essentially found and replaced the light bulb riddle and other repo specific names with DrawMon, and created some art for it, and created some Google API keys, and then gave me a head start. So it's mostly about giving you a head start if you want to do these things. The streams remain the way to follow along with this. You wouldn't need the repositories if you were following along. Hope this makes sense, but let me know. Catch me in the Discord as well. Right, so it seems like despite the warnings about PNPM, it did manage to bring in stuff here. So that's good. And we don't have Lucide here, so we need to resolve this. For icons, we're using Aconify. And we're doing check. Iconify. Check. This one. Which one looks nicest? Hello, we're still here. I thought about bailing, but I'm tagging along for one more thing. So we're using Aconify for our icons. I'm bringing in a Svelte ZCN component, which is using Lucide. So I need to change the Lucide imports with these. The cool thing with the plugin is that I get to see the icon here in the editor. I always think that's quite neat. All right, so that's one resolved. No icon, no icon, no icon, no icon. It's this one. Icon. Decline. I've been declining them quite a lot because you open all of these cookie warnings and they're like 251 vendors want to know your data. And I'm not like a data privacy person really, but come on, man. It's like maybe if it was like, you know, 5 vendors want to know this, like we need these cookies for like these 3 things, 5 things, 10 things, like 260. Clearly you got this something off the shelf, and who knows what's happening. You definitely know what's happening there. But hey, bit of a rant. Will it just be material UI one? Let's see. Not a real thing? I guess not. Material symbols. Whatever, bring this one. Move on with your life. I can always change it later. And 7 up. At least use the same one, I suppose. Yep, we got this one. separator. Chevron down, we've seen this one here. Right, separator. Looks fine. And I think that's it. It added like a couple things. Did you want to add another? It's failed. Select and separator. Yeah, that's it. Good. Let's format. We went through all of this trouble to bring in this component. Even though I don't really know if that's the best one. But now that we have, we are gonna tell the Svelte task prompt. Let's allow the user to select the number of Pokemon they want to see in the /random Pokemon route. Let's have a drop down that defaults to 1 and also has options for 3, 6, and 9. Make sure to use query params to keep hold of the state. Use a per page query param. Alright, let's see. Error reading file. Now that I didn't expect. Oh, there are different themes. I could have made this easier by specifying the complete route, but it needed to do a bit more to actually find what I meant. I cleared the context before, so it has no prior knowledge of the project having a random route, Pokemon list route. I guess sometimes in Cloud you do add the important routes of your project. I've done it like this before, so that's good. People even years ago were telling me autocomplete was like, oh, in yesterday's live stream you did this and today I called it in autocomplete, so it'd be funny if it got it from something I've done. Oh, while loop. Get random Pokemon batch. Whoa. So it's doing something interesting. It is still using query instead of batch, which is a bit suspicious. So while it's working in Svelte Remote Functions, there is a specific query.batch here, which is made specifically to avoid the n+1 problem, as they say here. And the n+1 problem is when you want to get the information of 50 Pokemon in your database, and instead of doing a select where with a single request you get all 50 that you need by passing in I want to select the Pokemon with these IDs, what you actually do is call 50 times the select request for because you're doing it for each Pokemon. And I guess it's n+1 because it's for these 50 Pokemon. You get first the list of Pokemon that you want to see. It's like the first request is like, oh, how many Pokemon match this? And the answer is 50, and then you do one request per each, so 50 plus 1, 51 requests, when you could have done it with 1. When we switch to the database, this will be even more important to do it correctly and use this query batch method. But with the REST API call, the Poke API does not provide a way to fetch the details of like 9 Pokemon at a time, so we can't really do much there, but we still can do something. But let's see what Cloud Code did. Feels like didn't do much. Well, maybe didn't do much correctly. I should have commented the select dropdown here, because it's a bit confusing. It created a new method, I suppose, get random Pokemon bands, that does not use created bands. I don't know why. And then it calls this method like many times. Kinda okay. And then returns all of the Pokemon. Sure. So that feels not ideal, but correct. Like, I don't know about this loop, it keeps adding this to the set. Like, I would do this with like a for loop, not a while loop. While loops are always scarier. Is this where we're at? Like the count is like something else and then this keeps going? Who knows? So yeah, suspicious. Then on the server, it gets it from the search params or defaults to something. Sure. I guess we could use a Zod schema for this. And then returns it as data here. And then in the page, it has the options. And this. I could have added like a React superform and stuff here, even though it's a GET request. So I would do it with Svelte forms. I wouldn't do it like this. So is this the case? Where I would provide more instructions in the prompt. And do I have like form components? I do. And Svelte knows stuff about forms. So let's just stash these changes. Don't like this. Don't like this. Kinda like this. And oh, what's this bad UI where it keeps toggling how big the button is? All right, so I'll give it one more chance and call it a stream. Let's allow the user to select blah, blah, blah. Let's have a dropdown. Maybe add the dropdown first. So SatCN does have examples of forms, which I've used quite a lot. But no example in the repo. The login form does have something. But like here is how you'd use a select. So I want to specify something to hint what I want. Inside SatCN. Should fall back to a form. So I'm talking more about forms. wondering, should I separate the problems with hitting the Pokemon API and just doing the UI that won't actually be working? But I'll give it a chance to do it all correct. So I'm specifying Svelte superforms, I'm specifying the subscene form fill and form control, I'm specifying Zod. Will it do any better now? Which would allow us to worry about how it amended the remote function. Ugh, forgot to clear context, which I should have had. Whoops. It wants to see if it's in packetization, which it can't see elsewhere in the repo, or I should mention in CloudMD. Yeah, I should be mentioning in Cloud. But with remote functions, there is a different way to do forms as well. So something to investigate in a following episode would be how to do forms without Svelte superforms. Get random Pokemon patch for some reason. Get n random Pokemon. Ali says, I'm really interested in how you use Cloud. Yeah, I've been trying it more now. I've been trying like more complicated things like using PRDs or using a research plan implement phase, but I also find them too complicated to do it. I think so the research plan implement is usually something where you have a special Cloud command and you link to like a Jira ticket or whatever else you have, and you say, oh, I want this feature, and then it does research and then adds all the context, and then it creates like a task list plan. And it's all good, but I also don't want to like faff around too much preparing all of these things. Like I don't want to spend 3 months making sure I have the right commands to do the research plan implement thing correctly. And by then, you know, Anthropic will have a new feature and it's like, oh, now we can do some tasks better. And then you have to rewrite everything. But yeah, for these demo projects, I think you can find some middle ground where it's not just let's just write to the prompt, but still not sweat it too much either. All right, so the autofixer is not recognizing that experimental sync is enabled. So now it knows because we added it in Cloud, but it didn't pass the correct information to the thing. So what it did before, it must have been that it ignored this line as well. There must be a way to be able to tell the fixer this is the Svelte config. But that wasn't it. Ugh. Yeah, it's gonna fail massively. Well, maybe not massively. Maybe the result will be something that will visually work, and that could be kind of fun. But I am gonna stash it after this and reevaluate. It's like I did everything. You did nothing correctly though. Sorry. So yeah, I don't think. We saw before. Let's see what it did. It did add this get random Pokemon batch method, not using query.batch, which it probably should have had. Here it is using form, great, but it's not using it didn't create the schema correctly. So, you know, not ideal. It is passing down the form correctly, great. It is using this form component, but didn't create a separate component like I like to do. It is explicitly saying the form is a get method, which it shouldn't have had. It is using an older version of Svelte at the end that is doing the attributes like this with Svelte 4, not Svelte 5, where you're supposed to be rendering children. So yeah, lots of things wrong with this approach. And it also broke what was there before, because it is using again the Svelte hashtag await magic instead of the regular await that we had before. So yeah, all of this bad. So many promising things, so many good things from today's stream. Unfortunately, we are ending with like a bit of a fail. Come on, man. I may commit the select components at some point. I'll think about this. Something that I was thinking about adding as a bonus would be refactoring the login flow to use the form remote function. Here in this example, they are creating a new post using the form action. What I'd want to do is theoretically simpler. So if I'm a logged out user, I can go to the login page and log in with the available social auth methods. Just on development, you can log in as a mock user. I use Playwright, the Playwright test to validate that it can log in. Playwright as an automated browser cannot log in using its social auth, doesn't have a Gmail account, so it can't use this. So at some point, unfortunately, we need to mock something, and what I do is log in as a mock user there. Anyway, in reality, I can log in by Google, and that simple form, maybe, like I was considering asking Cloud Code to refactor this to use remote function form, this, instead of Svelte Superforms, which is a very cool project that I've been loving, but it's full of Svelte 4 stuff that is maybe not needed. So I don't know. Svelte Superforms does give you a lot of handy things, like an easy way to sort those notifications, while even just looking from for the form section here in the remote function docs, it does feel a bit overwhelming. So not sure. SadScience, as we saw before, is essentially using Svelte Superforms for this, for their examples, not showing the way that it's going to be working with the remote functions, which is fair enough, as the approach of the excellent Handabite is, if it's stable, then we're going to work into adapting SadScience Svelte into supporting it. If it's not stable, I'm not going to bother, because, you know, maybe next day it's going to be working a different way and I'll need to refactor everything. And I have like 50 open source popular projects to support, so I can't be wasting my time doing things just for them to be deprecated next day. Very fair enough, very reasonable. But if you're interested in how the form stuff work with remote functions, let me know. As an overview of remote functions, it's kind of neat. I do like it in ways, in the pagination examples and infinite loading examples that I've mentioned before, and at some point we'll have in the app as well. I do like to do a poor man's dependency injection, I always say, where in my Svelte hooks, I put into the locals to be used across the app. The main thing that I like in SvelteKit versus Next.js is that after this, elsewhere, everywhere in the app, I would be able to take out the user's repo and use the commands that I have there, like find user. So in theory, to use the Pokémon API, I would have a Pokémon repo, and anywhere in the app, I would be able to use it to get out the users. And I'd be passing that repo like the database or another API or whatever. But it would only be in this place that it would need to be passed its dependencies. And I can switch from the Poké API one to my database one by just changing a single line. With the remote functions, this is not really possible as far as I understand. The remote functions do not have access to the locals. So you either will need to make your methods, the query method, be given a parameter that is your database connection if you want to use the database, or more realistically, you just be importing the database here, which is like more classic JavaScript, but I think it's the sort of immature JavaScript Tarzan style development, jump from branch to branch, that made JavaScript into the thing that we love today, but there are better ways to use it. So yeah, not sure how I feel about this throwback, but all the magic that they're doing to enable the remote functions is extremely cool, as we saw that in Surin, you don't do like more requests than you need to and that sort of stuff. The top level await was cool to see, even though the LLM did struggle knowing that we are able to use it. Oh well. Right, so I think with that, I'll just do one more recap and call it a stream. Let's push what we have besides the component that we didn't use. Wow, made it to 3 hours. Told my wife this would be a quick one. It hasn't been a while, and you know, I feel that we'll get through it quickly and move on with our lives. But I had fun. Time cruised through, even though we spent a little bit of it debugging. So let's see if this has indeed been deployed. We're deploying to Cloudflare. It's usually quite fast with this. Give me a Pokemon and I can do it here. Not deployed yet. Give it a bit more time. Guess for extra functionality, we didn't do much, and the bespoke Pokemon page, we don't even have a way to get in there. We could have the random page lead into the detail page, but we don't actually show any more information here. So I don't know if that would be meaningful. Let's look at the GitHub project as well. Passing. Did I not push? 34 minutes ago, it says. So that's good. Do I have like deployments? Yes. But it doesn't show any. Interesting. I should pin it as a favorite one. Right, 1 minute ago. So we should get... We already had this random view, which we refactored a little bit to actually use top level await, the experimental Svelte feature that the LLM didn't know we had. But we also added a specific Pokemon detail page. Oh, Anton says you can get the locals from get request event, which would be brilliant. And I definitely do live stream here. Oh my god. So in the event is where we're putting the locals, which is where I'm putting the database, which is where I could put the repos, and then I could just do that. So that's awesome. That's something I'll definitely be showing there. They've thought of everything. The locals feature is so handy that I would be like, oh, I'm not going to be using remote functions as much if I can't access the locals. But of course they have a way to do this. Brilliant. They're also doing an unnecessary return await, which I always dislike, but hey, that doesn't matter as much. Cool. Oh, that's a refactor that I will do immediately after this, but I'll definitely be talking about it in the stream. Thanks so much. This is another reason that I like doing the streams, like I learn of things. Cool. So, remote functions, great. What did we do today? We did use SvelteKit remote functions, the query version, the easy one, in order to fetch a specific Pokemon and see how that goes. We went through a few error cases and worked with Svelte error boundaries as well. But you can see we didn't find like an easy way to say, oh, this is like the error page. But you can do it, just needed a bit more elbow grease from me that I'd rather do online instead of you seeing me do it there. But we did simulate the server crashing, and then a user presses try again, and then it just works. The code generated by the LLM, this was a Svelte MCP focused stream. The code generated with the LLM, I was very impressed with the initial code from the random for the random Pokemon page. Even though it had its mistakes as well. I was less impressed with the code for the bespoke page to retrieve a specific Pokemon based on the name, because it didn't use enough from the page that we had before. It didn't try to reuse the remote function that we had. It didn't try to extract anything else, which I guess is a context engineering type of problem or a situation, that you could have a prompt that says, find out places that this has been done before, or me explicitly saying, do it like I did in the random page. Or say, since we're going to be doing it twice, make sure to extract common functionality into the lead directory. So it was a bit disappointing that it didn't do this by default, but that's, I guess, a problem with the LLMs. As far as the documentation is concerned, it did manage to read the Svelte documentation correctly and use the experimental feature correctly. For the most part, for the random thing, it didn't know how to refresh the Pokemon the correct way using the .refresh method. And it didn't use the query.batch feature. And that's also a bit worrying. So it works not perfectly. You need to keep an eye out for what it does and then redo your prompt, I suppose, as it usually happens with LLMs. But much better. No React code suggested this time. The thing it was doing was JavaScript. The big note there was that it couldn't read my Svelte config, and I would like to try again just by putting the Svelte config on the top level and see if it is doing something by default to pass the Svelte config. But because I'm in a monorepo and my Svelte config is actually nested in the web app, it's not seeing it correctly. So we're getting the issue that top level await is not enabled, even though it was, which caused quite a lot of problems. But we'll see. Promising overall. Let me know what you'd like to see next. I'm very keen to show dependency injection and using the get request event like that. I'm keen to show submitting forms. So the idea of this app is to go in here and see a random Pokemon and be inspired. Oh, I'm gonna draw this. And after I draw it, I press a button to track that I've drawn it today, and then I have my stats, how many Pokemon I've drawn in a day, or more realistically, how many days of the week I have drawn a Pokemon, and get like a little tick or a little streak or whatever else. And then only get suggested Pokemon that I didn't draw before. Or even better, be able to toggle whether I want to see Pokemon that I've drawn before or not, whether I want to see only generation 1 Pokemon or from which generation I want to have suggestions from. I think this would be fun features. This would also mean that we could do like some cron jobs to sync the Pokemon API with our database. Maybe that's fun to do. I know that people often like seeing how do I work with images. So instead of using the image from the Pokemon API, we should probably be uploading one in Cloudflare or something and serving it ourselves instead of using their servers. So that'd be nice. Lots of things to do, things to do more with either doing this LLM coding type of thing or specific Svelte features. Let me know what you'd like to see, and I'll see if I think I can do an interesting stream about this. Thanks to everyone for keeping me company today. Thanks in general for spending even a little bit of your time with me watching, but especially the people in the chat. It was such a pleasure, and even to the end with Anton Island, very, very, very cool thing that I'll be investigating immediately. Thanks again, and I hope you have a lovely rest of the day and a week coming up. Question by Faranglau. Have you tried using SvelteKit when you're using working with LLMs? It seems to do very well with some of the issues I had today. So that's SvelteKit by GitHub, and indeed I have tried it. Again, like I guess it's Microsoft, so it's not like a small company that is saying I'm gonna solve your LLM problems, and and then you never hear from them again. It is growing more and more popular. It has a nice demo video. And yeah, if you'd like to see a stream of me trying it out, I guess the first question is, have you tried it? The answer is yes. I've tried a few guidelines doing spec-driven development or context engineering development. I've mentioned before the research plan implement type of thing. I followed a few blogs. So I've tried a few, but as always, things change so fast that I wasn't keen to start with, here's how you can use it with GitHub SvelteKit specifically. I do think that it would solve a lot of the problems. So we mentioned before that with SvelteKit, you could have the to-do list for you to say, to highlight the feature a bit better and specify, these are the examples, look into these pages, do all of that. So, but yeah, I don't want to make this a disservice at the end of the stream and just quickly talk about it. But I have used it before. It wasn't, the main thing was I didn't want yet another tool to make the context engineering stuff for me. But it's super popular. It's Microsoft. It could be good. It could be here to stay. Let me know of alternatives. Let me know if it would be interesting for you to do a stream like that, and I will and use it more. But yeah, so the main things were like, oh, the principles of the project, you need to specify them with this. It's like, can't I have something that just works with like Cloud Code or like most of these agents and needs in like yet another specific thing? Like a more standard format is what I'm looking for. But maybe one is not going to emerge, or the one that will emerge will be the most popular one, which could be SvelteKit. So I'd love to have a look. Let me know if you've used it and how well it worked for you. Long story short, because I managed to ramble in the end, instead of going in one of the more sophisticated approaches, I just had this little readme to like rewrite the prompts a little bit and then clear the context and paste it in. But I would be very interested in having something to document what the feature is, where it needs to look, and iterating the prompt before starting to do more of the work. I do think even today it would have solved a lot of the problems. But today was mostly about hook up the Svelte MCP server and see how far you can go with it. So yeah, iterate on that in the future, very, very likely. Thanks for bringing it up. And I hope it really is this and you didn't mean something else. But yeah, I think it's unlikely. Cool. Again, thanks everyone, especially the people in the chat. Have a lovely, lovely day.